Welcome back to Workplace Wellness Strategies. I'm your host, Derek Anderson with the Elevate Performance Group. Today, our guest is a renowned lifestyle coach who focuses on both physical and mental health, and she is the founder of Life in Motion, Miss Bree Booz. Bree, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Hello, I'm doing well, staying warm in Ohio. So
What is it over there right now? I think about 7 to 10 degrees.
we're roughly somewhere and it's dropping fast. So
How do you stay warm? Like, what's the most efficient thing to do outside of movement?
yeah, outside of movement. So I have always invested in, I'm from rural Michigan, the southwest corner. So we've always invested in really great snow gear. I always tell people, it's not bad weather, it's bad like winter clothing. So, but yeah, that's that. I have a walking pad here though. So if I'm not like bundled under blankets, I'm trying to move to stay warm.
That's a good tool to have inside for sure. So I kind of wanted to open up to discuss your personal fitness journey. 'Cause we've kind of talked before. You went through a hip surgery, and that came with a lot of challenges, both physically and mentally. So would you care to open up a little more about that and kind of share your experience?
Yeah. So I just entered my 40s and I have been an athlete my entire life. And when I was younger, it was constant hip pain, constant, constant, constant. And then when I turned around 30, I really had picked up my movement. I kind of dabbled in the CrossFit world. And before you know it, now I was having this very intense hip pain, low back pain, any kind. I mean, you're going upstream, downstream in the body, and I was feeling it. And I'm like, what is going on? So at that point, it just kind of came down to we'll rehab, we'll do PT, all this stuff. So I think I rehabbed a total of 5 years before I went and saw an ortho for it. And it was all stuff stemming back from when I was in high school. And it's just wild how the body kind of like morphs and protects you as the years go on. And then eventually it kind of says, hey, red light, time to get fixed. So I was doing how we came into hip surgery. I was actually doing the first mile of the Murph, and I felt like I was running swiftly like a gazelle. And then I came in and realized that I had tore my labrum. So here we are now. I am 14 months post pretty major hip surgery from one of the best hip preservation surgeons in the Cincinnati area. Um, Doing everything that I love and actually better now because my movement patterns are way better. So it was definitely I wouldn't even say debilitating because I was mentally prepared going into it, but it definitely presented some challenges.
You seem like you have more the positive connotation from it of going through that. Yeah, it's frustrating and it's hard, but it's made you a better coach, has it not? Like understanding more about the body and muscle imbalances and giving that knowledge to other people who work with you.
Yeah, so my surgeon actually works with FC Cincinnati, so the soccer club here,
Mm.
and he was very pro like I'm you're not necessarily going to be a test subject, but like I'm going to follow closely along because you are an athlete, but you're doing something different than what, traditionally his athletes would be doing playing soccer and whatnot. And it really just came down to I had a really great care team around me. At the time, I was working in a CrossFit gym south of me, and everybody, all my coaches were, we'll do whatever it takes. Like we're here to support you, whatever it is that we need. I was working with a physical therapy group in there, like inside the gym, and like whatever you need, whatever you need. So it wasn't. I was never alone on the journey. And then along with like the physician's assistant and then my surgeon, they've all just been wonderful. So I really haven't had a chance to be negative about it, honestly, because everybody's been there like supporting me on top of my family and my close friends and all that stuff. They're great too, but
It's so great, and I love that you found positive outlooks from it because it's really hard for a lot of people. Go through lumbar spinal fusions, for example. It can be so debilitating and frustrating, but there's always something positive there if you're looking for it. And it's a major respect for me to you that you were able to seek that out.
yeah, I think one thing that, and I know that I'm kind of an anomaly where, I'm super lucky and grateful to work in an industry that is very, we're held forward. CrossFit is not something that, we just like I mean, you can pick it up one day, but it takes years and development and you can kind of like train your mind to accept the hard stuff at that point. But, um, I like to think that if everybody could just go into like surgeries or just hardships with this like zero expectation mindset, that we can actually get through things so much easier. It's like we stop self-sabotaging at that point because if we go in with no expectations, like,
Yeah.
well, we have a good day, then we have a good day.
So I gotta ask, because with my audience, it's a lot of office life. So a lot of people with back pain or hip issues due to that sedentary desk style. So is there anything you learned going through that process that might help our audience, like anatomically or some muscle imbalance that you might have learned about that you didn't know before?
So, ironically, the last couple of weeks, I have had some pretty extreme low back pain, and my physical therapist, Allison, was like, I don't think it's your low back. I'm like, what do you mean? What are you
Usually
talking
isn't.
about? Yeah, and she's like, I don't think it's your low back. She's like, we're gonna like attack the hip first because that's obviously been a big opportunity over the last couple of years. She was like, but we're also gonna check your thoracic spine. And I'm like, okay. But going back to check upstream and downstream, like usually the pain is just we call it the victim, like wherever the pain is sitting in, that's
Right.
where the victim is. But then where is the criminal? And
Exactly.
so really, I mean, I'm a big fan of just random, like, how the kids these days have like fidget spinners and like
Oh
the
yeah.
little whatever, like where like as an adult, like just like sit, move your body, right? Like I think that there's some studies out there like doing like calf pumps or something, like raising your feet while you're sitting at your desk and everything. I always say if it's the low back, like we definitely need to go downstream and check the hips. Lots of imbalances there, but also, something that is breathing and walking. That's what we do every day for the most part, right? But a lot of us are not obviously getting the big strides that we need, or we're not training the hamstrings appropriately. We're not training the glutes. And people that live more of a sedentary life, it's like, what is tangible for them to do, right? And that literally is just seeing like how the body can move on the floor. I mean, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I'll sit on the floor on my yoga mat and just kind of like roll around. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just exploring the body. Like, trauma joints move properly still.
Was Allison able to find anything in your thoracic spine?
Yeah, it was actually like it's almost as if it would have been fused.
Wow.
It was just so tight. But once we were able to actually, so I think an opportunity that I ran into personally post hip surgery, because my surgeon had widened the psoas tunnel, so I actually had to like stay off from like really working my hip flexors for a little while because we didn't want to get like tendonitis or anything. I'm having a really hard time currently just like keeping my brace when I'm like just doing life stuff and working out. And so I'm thinking what's happening, and she is also in agreement that I'm not able to like keep my ribs tucked down in that stamina in the core. So
Mhm.
my upper back is like, nope. Like
That
we're
makes
gonna do what
sense.
we need to do to try and keep you stable. So it's helped tremendously. She's been absolutely wonderful. So she's a friend from the other PT group I was working with, and it's just been great. And it's so lovely to surround your like self or surround you yourself with people that are so much smarter than you, first of all. Like I learn something new every time I walk in there. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this today. I mean, I had pinched a nerve in my neck back in June, and I was telling her that I was having some issues, and my PM&R doctor kept saying that it was like carpal tunnel, and I'm like, no, it's not. Something else is wrong. And she just like got in my upper back and started doing like manual therapy, and she's got cups on me and having me, go overhead and like, you are it. You're the one for me.
This is a great journey, and thanks for sharing your journey with us. I like to bring it up because, we connected on the basics of wellness, and so much of what you see on social media and online or what's looked up is aesthetic based, right? It's all about appearance and, you know, emphasis on glute training, for example, but neglecting the parts of motion, the different planes of motion, and all the basics that are so necessary to have you perform at your best. So, in your experience as a coach, what are some common basics that are often neglected amongst your new members and client base?
Oh, I I would say my number one thing is everybody just wants to be able to lift the heavy weight and run the well, not everybody wants to run a marathon, but like run marathons and do all of this stuff right out of the gate. And I'm kind of like, hey, like take a step back. Like this is where we have to manage our expectations with just the way that our body is going to perform, and then also the mind, and really focusing on like little baby steps of how can we be successful, right? Like I didn't just start CrossFit one day. Like I genuinely went to Planet Fitness and walked on a treadmill for 90 days straight, 1 hour a day, to just like build up the habit of moving, because my body wasn't used to it. And so that's one thing that I always it's like you got to reel them back in. Like I get that you're really excited about this, but let's not put the cart before the horse.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But going back to very simple things, that good old saying, like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I need you to sleep right now. Like, it's so important. Just sleep right now, please. You'll get more out of your workout. You'll get more out of your day. You'll be able to perform, better at work. There's so many things that go into that. And not only that, but mentally, if we're not sleeping, like emotionally, we are triggered a lot more. And that's hard, even as the person, but also the people that were, around the rest of the day. So,
Oh, we could talk all day about sleep for sure. It's so important. It's an issue I've always had, just being a lifelong insomniac, and I try to sleep, and it's hard to turn my brain off sometimes. So to everyone listening who struggles with it, I relate, but do your best. It's so important. We can do a whole nother episode on that another day. But
one
sorry,
thing
go
I
ahead.
will say though is that it's kind of fun to dig into like sleep routines and like what you can hear other people do and like kind of implement that. It's like, okay, let's try it.
Oh,
Oh,
Put
totally.
things on
totally.
the table.
Back to the basics. So there's just so many components, and I think a lot of people have their ultimate finish line, their ultimate goal, but don't really see it as it's a checklist. It's learning all these new things and having all these new roadblocks that you have to get through. And I think they get overwhelmed because, let's say, a weight loss goal, just to keep it basic, right? You have your movement, but injury fixing and nutrition and all these different things, and it's hard to do all at once when it's all brand new. So trying to teach someone to incorporate one thing at a time and master it, make it a part of your life before adding the next element. Have you experienced that with your client base?
Oh, yeah. So, we just had New Year's and everybody has resolutions and all that stuff. And there's actually a term, it's called habit gravity. And typically it's where now we're 3 weeks into something and it actually gets really, really, really hard. And we haven't necessarily trained that part of our mind yet in that, like, okay, we have a good habit going. We've got a good habit going. Typically that habit gravity will win if we're trying to do too many things at once. If we can just kind of like go back to those basics of what is most important, and if not being a sedentary is that main goal, maybe that's all that it is all right, 30 minutes a day. I'm getting out, I'm moving. It could be 30 minutes of air squats. I don't know who would want to do that, but 30 minutes of air squats inside your house when it's 7 degrees out, right? Somebody will do it out there.
Yeah.
Um, but really it's kind of like baby stepping and going back to the basics. So we all know when it comes to just like weight loss goals in general, 23 hours out of the day, you have to control what's going in your mouth, right? So it's much easier to start with the working out or moving the body in some capacity, walking, whatever that may be. And then once you've solidified that, then it's like, okay, let's actually just try and incorporate more protein or, maybe 2 servings of vegetables a day, or are you getting your water in, It doesn't all have to be at once. And then before you know it, you've got a little drop in the bucket every day. And now you've solidified your movement. Okay, great. Now we can kind of like stack on top of that, and it's just very simple stuff. But I think what happens or what I see happens is we do really, really, really well. And all of a sudden, 9 months in, it's like we think that we've got everything under control because we've worked really hard and we kind of just relax. It's like we don't have to try as hard because we have some habits that are ingrained, but then we get a little too lax. And at that point, it's like, uh-oh, if weight loss is the goal and you see that the scale's kind of creeping up, it's like, well, oh, I got to go, maximize my movement or I got to go, and it's like, okay, no, let's just go back to the basics. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's just go back. And it's not necessarily like going back to the basics isn't a terrible thing, right? Like it's actually, I think it puts us more in control if we're able to go back there and just kind of relax. And when it feels chaotic, like returning to that simple, repeatable habit actually helps create that like sense of control back in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And I noticed too, you've probably seen this, that say someone's on a really good streak and they slip up a little bit, and that mental component, they'll be really hard on themselves, right? And I try to teach like it is what it is. There's no need to beat yourself up. It's not in your benefit. Just ride with it from here on out. Have you experienced that?
Oh yeah. Yes. The beloved self-sabotage. Yeah, it is one of those things where at that point we talk a lot about choices and we're all adults now, right? So we're going to make choices. That's just is what it is, right? And the choice is either going to get us closer to the goal or it's going to move us farther away from it. So what are we doing? And if we make the choice to go out on a Friday night and enjoy the evening out because YOLO, we only are on this planet one time, like
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
just going to wake up the next morning and pick up kind of like where I left off, and I definitely, and I'll say like years ago, I like beyond a decade ago, I if I was in this like, oh, I'm gonna lose weight now, like if I did that, I probably would have beat myself up for a minute, but then it's like, oh wait, no. If I look at the whole calendar year, 365 days, like what is one meal out? What is, that it's not gonna derail me that much. So it is a mental component, but I think a lot of it at that point is definitely like this is where I get real psychology like.
I love
It's
Love
it.
more
it.
of like we're gonna dive into like low self-esteem, our self-worth, do we have the confidence, did we lose trust in ourselves? Like that's kind of where that self-sabotage really stems from. And well, that's not fun.
No. Yeah, the mind body connection is something that we talk so much about on this show, and it's something I know you're passionate about. That's a big reason why I have you here, because I love sharing this connection with people. Um, Somewhere along the 60s or so, it really started to separate as we started to view the mind and body as two separate things. But really, any roadblock here can be helped by your physicality and vice versa. So, is there any common mental or physical roadblocks that you think the mind can help out? And I know you like to journal. Do you have any fun ways to do that that might like intrigue someone to get started on that? Because I know a lot of people want to, but it's hard to make that first step and make it a habit sometimes.
Yeah. I would say my go-to there is always gratitude journaling. It's always just reminding ourselves that there is so much more on this earth, this little spinny green and blue ball, to be grateful for because that I feel like that kind of centers us inside our body. And I remember when I actually started this practice, it was very much like, I'm grateful for my black coffee.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just so, and I call that like shallow gratitude. But it was so simple. And again, it goes back to the basics of just like starting the habit. Start the habit, and now I can literally just like sit in my car and the sun can shine in the window and I'm like, wow, this is great, right? So honestly, it's like tiny little things. I know that there's a lot of actually, I think Apple, if you have an Apple phone, I think that they have a journal in there now that actually alerts you, like if you want to type something
Oh,
in there
Oh,
or
nice.
something.
nice.
Yeah. But there's lots of apps out there that's super simple there. Also, one thing that I love, and I just sent this over to a friend, and they're like, "You do this," and I actually did one last night. A sleep scan. So if you do like Spotify, if you just look up sleep scan or body scan or something, it really just calms the mind down, but it actually walks you through each part of your body, like it takes you to the tip of your fingers, to your kneecaps, to the calf, to down to the toes. And that alone right there it's enough to just kind of put the two together to say like, hey, we don't necessarily have to like be like this all the time because I think that that's what we fight with a lot
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
and that it also goes back to like what is our unconscious mind doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's telling us that we shouldn't do this or whatever. And so it is wild, but it plays a huge role.
That's
Plays a huge
actually,
Actually,
I don't know if you ever tried hypnosis, but that's a major hypnosis technique. It's just full awareness of every part of your body. And when you get really deep, you can even feel your vibration in that moment. And yeah,
not ever done that. My mom is one. Jeez, my
it's
mom is
okay.
one of those people though that will try anything. And I'm almost positive that she has. And I feel like that is something that she has shared of like I feel like I can, feel like the hair on my arm just like standing up one time. I'm like, what? Okay. Like I'm here for that. So I think that's great.
I totally recommend trying it. And to everybody listening, go ahead and try hypnosis and give it a few tries because the first time it is hard, right? It's hard to turn your mind off and fully listen to the guidance, but it is worth it. It's a pretty cool experience, especially if you use it for sports visualization or visualizing your goals. It can really put you in that frequency. You already have everything you want if you really feel that. It's all about, it's like a radio dial. You want to listen to a certain station, you turn to a certain frequency. Your goals are the same way. I really believe that. And it is really hard, but we all can do it.
I love that. We did some visualization with our volleyball program, and at first they were like, "You're gonna have us lay down on the ground." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna hand on the heart, hand on the," and they're like, "What?" And it was so transforming. They're like, "Oh no, I could literally see myself doing these things," and it's just that important that we can kind of like project that into the future. So I love that.
Out of curiosity, if any of your team expressed this to you, when they were visualizing themselves, did they have it in a third person or first person perspective, or maybe a little of both?
Hmm. I feel like only one actually verbalized, and she is just a gem. I think it was she actually said no, and I saw myself going up and was able to like, because we do a lot of wrist snapping and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was she actually had saw it. And I want them all to dream. I'm like, I want you to dream. Like it's endless. We can do anything we want.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I'm jealous of my wife. She dreams like lucidly every night. I dream maybe once a month. Like, I don't know how she does it.
I here is the crazy thing about that. When the like more vivid my dreams are, the better my heart rate variability is.
Oh,
oh
wow.
wow.
So crazy. I'm like, I feel like I didn't get any sleep last night because I was living in five different other worlds. But
So your common resting heart rate's probably 60 or so, and then you can see it in your dreams, like reading the data, maybe going in the 80s or something?
yeah,
Wow.
Wow.
so when I can get my actual like HRV up to like 140, and then it I guess my resting sits right between like 55 and 60, but then it will like I'll see it go up in like the different like sleep, I guess, patterns or zones. I know there's like three or four different categories. REM sleep, deep sleep, all that fun stuff. So
I gotta try to dream more. Maybe I'll use hypnosis to start trying to manifest that, because it can be quite fun for sure.
yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen some stuff.
Random question, and to everybody listening as well. Do you like bingo?
Do I like bingo? Man, I would say yes. Reason being is that my grandma loved it. She loved it. And I feel like that's like it's like a good childhood memory.
Yeah, I have a fun way for gratitude and goal manifesting and writing them down. So, and I'll put the PDF in the document or make your own at home if you'd like. It's fun to like just get some markers or crayons and be creative with it. But if you make a bingo card and write your goals or things you want to experience in random order on the card, then you're writing it down and also checking it out across the year and try to black the card out. So, for example, mine, right, would be like increase business revenue, visit a new NBA arena, like just random things. And so they're not all in line. Makes each card a little different. So, something to
Like
try.
that. And I feel like I've seen that somewhere, maybe in the last couple of months. I feel I have a gal who I'm not quite sure exactly what she does. She was a realtor for a long time, but I'm not sure what she does now. She plays grandma really well to her grandchildren. I love that for her. But I feel like she just did something like that with all of her grandkids. And I was like, she's onto something. So,
So to close, talked about our challenges and the importance of how discomfort can be a growth opportunity for anything you go through. We discussed this with your hip and learning more about the thoracic spine and the psoas tunnel. Is there anything or any message or to a common pain point that you'd like to share with someone, like how it could be a gift for them if they look at it the right way?
so yeah, I think that a good way to just approach adversity and understanding that like discomfort is not always a bad thing. And recognizing that if there's any sort of like anxiety that comes along with it that may actually kind of be standing in our way, like you got to harness that anxiety for the positive and use that energy into whatever it is that you're doing. I don't necessarily love public speaking, but I know that I'm getting better at it, but it's because I put myself in situations that do make me really uncomfortable. And it's kind of with the attitude of how hard can this be? If I mess up something, okay, I'm just a human being, right? I'm going to do better next time. And really surrounding yourself with people that kind of can like inflate you with confidence. So I know that that helps a lot of people, knowing that they have the support and, it might feel a little fake at times, but you got to go for it.
Public speaking is a common one for sure. But yeah, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, if you have goals, you haven't experienced these things before, or else you would experience your goals already. So you're going to go through roadblocks and uncomfortable situations. It's part of the requirements needed for you to get to where you want to be. So anytime I try to tell people, like, you feel something new that's uncomfortable or scary, see that as a good thing because you're getting closer to your ultimate destination.
Yeah. I always like to think like everything that I want is just right outside my comfort zone. And then we can just keep growing it. Like and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and now I have all the things that I could possibly want in my life.
Well, Bree, thank you so much for your time today. Could you please tell the audience where they can look you up or find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. Coach Bree Booz, Booz is my last name, or how you spell my last name. Other than that, lifeinmotionllc.com is my website. I don't often say that, so but I am just the coach that is here for the human spirit, and I want to make sure that everybody achieves what they want in their life. So and that's going back to the basics so we can tackle all the good stuff.
I will put all of your website and social media handles in the description, everybody. Thanks so much for listening, and Bree, thanks so much for your time. It was a pleasure today, and I hope you had a great time with me.
Yeah, thanks.
Until next time, everybody, take care. I'll talk to you soon.